But that was the fate of all the camp residents. So we were not unique in being deprived of these basic necessities.
هلا انا بس بدي ارجع لموضوع انه عن تاثير الهجره قديش اثرت على ابوي وعمي. عمي وابويا طلعوا بس لهم اخو صغير اسمه محمد. محمد 17 سنه يعني ولد، يعني اصغر من ابني دلوقتي نعتبره ولد. دخلوا السجن لانه رفض يطلع مع اللي طلعوا. اللي ضلوا اللي هم ما كانوش يعني والله اوه فاين وجماليتي ولاد، لا، حاولوا يضلوا، بس اللي اتقتل، اللي حبس، اللي ضاعت وراءه صار معهوش حتى شيء يثبت مين هو. عمي من الناس اللي انحبس ولما اجى يطلع معهوش اي حاجه تثبت مين هو. فهو ايش عرف على واحده المانيه، اتجوز، اخذته وطلعت على المانيا. كان عمره 19 سنه لما سافر على المانيا، ما كانش كبير يعني تقول في وضع انه اخذت حرقت قلب امه اللي هي اخذت يمكن 3 سنين ما تعرفش وين هو.
My parents got married in 1953. In 1955, they had their first child. His name was Abdul Karim. Abdul Karim lived till 1967 when he was shot by the Israeli soldiers. He was just around turning 11 years old. And that was at the conclusion of the 1967 war. I remember that because I was with him when we came back after we fled the camp where we lived, Gandhi camp. We came back and we were told to raise the white flags, and I remember my parents doing that. But then the kids gathered and we started running around the camp a little bit, and suddenly out of the blue, an Israeli little jeep started to shoot at us. And my brother was one of the victims of that shooting. And more painful for my parents was the fact that his body was not claimed by them, and they spent years trying to find his body. Nobody knows exactly when he was buried. But we were told by some hospital employee that he may have been buried in a mass grave in a hospital in Jerusalem. They remember the description of the body and the age, and they said there was only one child that could have been there, so my brother or his son. But never really brought the killing to closure for my parents. My parents, especially my mother more than my parents, always remembered him.
عايشين الحلم انه احنا لسه معنا كشان الارض ومعنا مفتاح البيت وحلم شجر الليمون والبرتقال اللي إلهم انه يمكن نشر.
And I remember asking my parents, especially my father, how come we are doomed to living in this camp? And my father always said, your camp is not where you should be. We have a place we will go back to one day. This is the story not just of my family, it's the story of almost every Palestinian family, specifically the refugees, more so than villagers who stayed in their villages and didn't have to witness the traumatic experience and the absence of homelessness that we did. That it's painful when you go to Palestine and you're told welcome to Israel, or when you have to apply for a tourist visa to visit your homeland, or you're told you cannot visit this place or that place because you're a foreigner. It's very painful. But I do it, and I know thousands of Palestinians do it in a way to challenge that status quo that says you don't belong here.
أصعب منطقة تدخليها في العالم كله غزة، لأنه سجن كبير وبوابة واحدة بندخلها من مع برا. مع هيك أول فرصة صحت لي بعد الكوفيد أن أزور أفتكر بلا موت، يعني رحت ريت أموت.
طبعا الزيارات إلى فلسطين ونقلتها يعني كان كثير مؤثر بالنسبة لهم طبعا، يعني صار يشوفوا اللي راح عليهم من 60 سنة ولا 50 سنة ولا زي هو يعني لحظات كثير صعبة. يعني بقول لك لأنه العلاقة بينهم وبين الأرض علاقة خطوية، مش يعني أنا كانت بالنسبة لي العلاقة مبنية على قصص، هن بالنسبة لهم هي علاقة قوية، هن كأنه الولد معك، مش فقط الولد معك، الولد منها.
When your homeland is stolen from you, and you're denied the right to live in a homeland, a place you call home, your home, it's the most painful experience. Nothing in life, material, can compensate for that sense of completeness. So I would not have mind to be poor and still living in Palestine. I would not have minded to be uneducated and still living in Palestine where my parents were raised and they lived their life. And it's more painful when I know that not only they have been expelled, but also Yemeni Jews have taken over that village now, and 90% of it is deserted. So my parents could have easily stayed there, or were allowed to go back, but they were denied. And more so, they're not only denied to return there, but also denied compensation or at least an acknowledgement of the crime that was committed against them. They died with the dream buried in their heart that they would return to their village.
مشاعر الوقت أنا مش غلط قد ما أنا بقول مش رح أخلي لحد بالدنيا يقضي على الأمل تبعي إنه يوم من الأيام إحنا رح نرجع، لأنه اللحظة اللي فيها بقتلوا هذا الأمل في قلبي يبقى هم كسبوا القضية. يعني أنت إذا بتحكي عن الأمل يمكن حاجة مش هالوقت تصير بس رح تصير. أنت لما بتحكي عن الأمل بتحكي أنا يمكن ما عملتهاش بس ابني يمكن يعملها، يمكن مش ابني كمان يمكن ابنه. أنا ثيرد جنريشن اللي في أمريكا، بس نحكي على فلسطين كأنها امبارح طلعنا منها، مش من 7 سنة.
الناس ما خسروا إنسانيتهم مع كل اللي طلعوه له. يعني تم يعني وبتمنى إنه العالم كلها تتركز وترجع لأنه يعطوا للإنسان إنسانيته. مؤمن بأن هناك بيندرج كل شيء.
But we have not given up, and Palestinians are known for their stubbornness. If anybody thinks that Palestinians will forget their Palestine, they are mistaken. In fact, I see more passion in my children's involvement with the issue than even I had when I was their age. So I'm very hopeful that the issue of Palestine will continue to gain the kind of support that it deserves, and that Israel will be made to pay for the price of the crimes it committed against our people.
ونحن راجعون عائدون بإذن الله طبعا.
I've watched this before, but every time everything is really fresh in me. So thank you again, everyone, for coming. For anyone who joined late, the title of that documentary is Stories of the Nakba 75 Years Later. It was produced and directed by PAC, and it was produced and directed by PAC, and it features members of our community And as I mentioned at the beginning, before we started, was one of the speakers, Captain Huwaida, her niece is actually Inas, who is speaking with us today. Her son is here too, but he's inside, but you'll see him, I keep calling him out. But it's very, I hope that today we can have a really important discussion on the fact that we have these lived experiences and these families, and it's systematic and it's ongoing. So I do want to take advantage of the fact that we have a small group today and want to get some interaction from you guys. We do a lot of lectures, and I think it's really important to also discuss and hear from you. So I'm going to say this statement, unlearning what we were taught in history. What comes to mind?
The white savior complex, that we were all kind of told, like, oh, they do this because it's, supposed to be helpful, or this is the way it has to be, or whatever, and it's all a lie.
Okay. Good. So she said the white savior complex, and that this is how it's supposed to be, and it's all a lie. I completely agree. Does anyone want to expand or respond to that? What else comes to mind from that statement?
So I think the narrative of a history is depending on who's telling it. So if you're only hearing history from one side, you never get the full picture.
Yeah, excellent. So history, obviously, there is a truth and there's multiple truths that have occurred. But if you're only hearing one side, you're never going to know the full story. And that is why we actually did this, and why we have to learn all of these different stories. Because going back to the idea of the white savior complex, as a Palestinian American, when I growing up in America, you never hear this side of the story. You don't hear much about anything beyond America anyway, but often the side that you do hear, and this goes not just for Palestine, but so many issues. We can talk about indigenous issues, we can talk about the Black struggle, we can go on and on. You hear one side of the narrative, and that's all you're getting. So hearing the oral history and the lived experiences is so important for so many struggles, and that includes Palestine. If you Google the Nakba, I think maybe it was when I was younger, I barely found anything. I'm glad that now when I look it up, I do find more information, but you always have this one-sided history presented to you, and you do have to dig deeper behind it. Yeah.
This time, yes. Understanding that history is written from the side of the winner, not necessarily the side of what the truth was and what it was. And that was something that there were so many things that were taboo to say growing up, and that I didn't really learn, even though I'm Palestinian. So many things about Palestine, and not just that, but a lot of the struggles that Arab American, anyone who's coming from South America, anyone who's coming to America, right? The idea, it was always that America was like the savior, and everyone came here to escape all of the bad that was happening, never really questioning why the bad was there to begin with, because it clearly wasn't like that for thousands and thousands of years, because then, all these generations wouldn't have continued. So it was trying to go back and understand that, wait a minute.
Such an excellent point. Yeah, I think only as an adult that I was like, wait, manifest destiny was not a good thing. Like all of these different things, and that's the unlearning. Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Ida. Yeah.
Just that the problems in Palestine didn't happen before September or October 7th, that it was there from before. I'm sure it wasn't a long time ago, or a few years ago. So
It was actually last year.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, but they're
exactly.
talking about stuff that happened way before. So
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and that brings us back to where we are at in this moment. It didn't start October 7th. It started way before this, even before 1948. The May 15th, 1948 is the day of the Nakba, and the day of the catastrophe because it was when Israel officially took over, but the settlement project and the ethnic cleansing started before that, and it has been continuing since. So we had two questions. So what do you know about the Nakba? We're going to skip this one and go to the after. What did you learn about the Nakba? What struck you the most from the film? And what's something that you learned for the first time? So just any response. What struck you, or what did you learn? Yeah.
What struck me was just like the amount of deaths from the Nakba, like how horrible it was, and like the amount of like all this bad stuff happened, and it's not in a single textbook for history. Like growing up, you know, you get a textbook, and they tell you like they tell you each couple of years, like each grade they tell you about what you learned for history. And they never mention anything about Palestine or Israel or anything like that, or any massacres related to it. So it's just surprising. You know?
Yeah, there's a really filtered history that we're getting in our side of the world. Yeah, definitely.
I think the part in the video where they were describing how they lined people up against the wall as children, mothers, fathers, and just told them point blank. I think that struck me the most because now in this day and age when you're online, you can read things online, see things online, and it's very easy to become almost desensitized to what you're seeing, to what you're viewing. And when you're hearing it firsthand, it definitely is more of a shock.
100%. I completely agree. Right, especially now we're seeing all of it on our phones, live streaming, and constant videos, and just I feel it's so easy to get desensitized. So I think you're right, just hearing it directly from someone who experienced it just brings that back the importance of seeing it and how severe it really is.
What kind of was the most like visceral part for me was the one guy talking about. I think it was just someone he knew, but forcing them to go to him and his son to go to the oven. You know, kind of. I mean, I think this room generally is probably pretty more knowledgeable than most, about it. But I've mostly only seen images of people walking. I knew about the long journey and I knew about the walking part, but hearing, it was very striking to hear about like kind of the violence aspect and the hatred aspect, and wanting to take the land is one thing, I guess, sort of, but to actually like kill children, there had to be some type of hatred there that seems clearly very unwarranted, and so hearing about forcing people into the oven just felt, especially very post-Holocaust, like it's,
For me, it was the level of emotion and excuse the way I put this, but at 100 people dying or being murdered with the Dead Yassin, and then taking that and putting it into context of what's happening now, but still that level of emotion is still so raw, and still so painful, and how the one gentleman said to just go back to that level of humanity and how real it is today. How much that line just struck such a chord, such a nerve.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Just hearing the story and noting the numbers. In the 1948 Nakba, it's often quoted 15,000 were killed. Now we're past 40,000.
Yeah.
So putting that into context, and I think that's what Ines was speaking about. She's with an organization, Gaza, called We Are Not Numbers. So going back to the humanity of each lived experience. I don't want to take up too much time from Ines's speech. So, thank you all for that. One thing I do want to say before I introduce Ines is Even as a Palestinian, by the way, growing up, I didn't even hear all of these stories of Deir Yassin in particular. I think I learned through PAC. I did the Freedom is the Future virtual course, which is in the fall, and learned the details of that. And I knew like the general history, but I didn't really learn it until I actually got it taught to me. So, and I'm a Palestinian, I've been there, I was born, my family was all from there. We grew up visiting, and we don't even hear it all. Maybe because the trauma of our own families don't want to talk about it, and then we're not getting it in schools. We really have to go out of the way to find it. But I do also recommend for further reading. If you're interested, I could share it. I'll forward it to everyone who's registered. We have resource guides, we have books that you can read, different things that you can get more information on. Thank you. So without further ado, I'm again very grateful to have Inas joining us today. Inas Farisqanna served as the We Are Not Numbers project manager from November 2021 to September 2023. She earned a bachelor's degree in English education from the Azhar, along with a diploma in translation from the Islamic University of Gaza. She is currently close to completing a master's degree in translation as well. Inas is passionate about improving the lives of youth, especially in Gaza. She hopes to help others discover what she did when she first joined We Are Not Numbers, that she has many unknown abilities that can be cultivated and nurtured. Through We Are Not Numbers, Inas discovered her ability to write creatively, both fiction and nonfiction. You can actually find much of her work on the We Are Not Numbers website. If you look up her name or the website, you'll find them. I wanted just also to introduce her with a poem. So I actually asked her, I was like, can you read a poem? And she said they're written old, but it was a really beautiful poem, so I just want to read it, and then I will hand it off to Inas. This is I Was Born Blind. I was born blind, but that was okay, for everyone my age was born blind too. My father and mother said they had sight once, and they kept telling me stories about what life was like then. Fairy tales about people they saw, places they visited, flowers of every color possible but black, but I never understood what they were talking about. I was born blind, but that was okay, because you don't miss what you don't have. But my parents seemed to, for they kept talking about mountains they climbed, forests they passed through, rivers they camped beside, and lots of things that you and I know are no longer true. Recently, I've been having strange dreams. I see myself looking at the sky, but it is not black anymore. Someone or something gave it this amazing color. But that is not all. I see myself dancing, painting, singing. I'm holding my passport, waiting in line to travel. I'm riding in my car with my friends to visit a city of my country, using only a map for directions. I'm acting in a theater, I'm writing stories, I'm happy, I'm different, I'm alive. Then suddenly, black comes back. I remember I was born blind, but for the first time, it is not okay. So, Inas came here in September, and then October 7th happened, and she's been with us since.
My name is Inas Farisqanna. I was the project manager of We Are Not Numbers, a project that tells the stories of the victims behind the numbers in the news. I came here in September 14 for the first time out of Gaza to represent the project in an event called Palestine Riots. A few days later, my world in Gaza got destroyed, and now I can't go back to Gaza. I'm a Palestinian from Gaza, from Yafa, from Nablus. That has always been a confusion for me to decide, since I have always had this word next to my name, refugee. I remember the first time I heard the word refugee was when I was in the first grade. I studied in an honor school for refugees. As part of completing students' files, the teacher was asking us about our names, followed by this question: are you a citizen or a refugee? When my time came, I did not know what was that, So when I asked the teacher, she explained saying that if I am from Gaza, I am a citizen. Other than that, I'm a refugee. But since I was born and raised in Gaza, I thought that I was from Gaza. So that means I was a citizen. On that day, my father explained to me that I was not, and that I was a refugee. He told me that in 1948, his parents and 5 sisters were forced to leave Jaffa right after the massacres that happened in Deir Yassin, Tantura, and Dawaiba. They left out of horror and fear for themselves and their children. He told me about how they went on a boat from Jaffa city to Gaza, taking a few things with them, thinking that they will only come back home in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. However, feeling ashamed of even remembering those days, my father continued that they reached Gaza and they had to live in tents and camps for some years. Since that day, they received a document that they should take with them everywhere and inherit to their children. The document said that they were refugees. As a child, my father told me about these first days when his parents had to stay at the house of the family, crammed with lots of people, where they could only have a room for the 10 of them in one room. They kept moving from one place to another, from one area to another for years, until they settled when my grandfather worked with the UNRWA. However, in 1957, my grandfather was killed when Israeli soldiers broke into the camp, collecting all men of the families. It was then when my grandfather was killed and father became the man of the house at the age of 10. They say, as father as son, while all of us in Gaza lived in the shadow of Nakba, we never witnessed but lived its effect every day. It seems that the track of my father and ours is identical. While my father lived through many incidents in his life and changes and wars and catastrophes, we went through the same. I also left my house many times before. In 2008, we had to leave our homes for fears of our lives. I lived in the 2008 and 2009 attack on Gaza with my sister who delivered her baby, Yahya, during a 2-hour truce in the middle of that attack. 2 weeks later, we came back home to find it burned. I left it in 2014 when a missile hit my room while we were in the house. And the one day we returned during a truce, I remember that once I entered the house, the telephone rang. I answered and heard the automated voice of an Israeli soldier saying in broken Arabic, "Cooperate with us." You saw what happened in Shujaiya and Khuzaa, both sides of massacres. Know that there is no safe place in Gaza for any of you. My heart began beating violently. I had heard before that people receive these calls. There are 2 kinds of calls, threatening ones like the one I received, and ones with a direct evacuation order, which I feared to receive. I was shaking, listening for the word evacuation. I imagined the situation. In seconds, all kinds of scenarios passed through my head. How will we leave? Will we leave? Yes, I guess. But how difficult it will be to leave everything behind and go. What if something terrible happened to a member of my family? Then I recalled the faces of each one of them. I tried not to think of that. Can I take anything? Then I remembered how I barely had time to put on my hijab. That time we fled the house because of the missile attack that forced us to leave in the first place. The voice on the telephone stopped talking, and I hadn't heard the order. I hung up the phone. I didn't tell anyone about the call. I thought they would worry more, and I didn't want them to leave the house where we had all gathered for a family meal during the truce after 2 weeks of separation. After that time, my father and every one of us decided that whatever happens, happens. We are not leaving the house under any words again. But how little did we know? On October 14, I woke up in the middle of the night, precisely at 3 a.m., to the image that my father had always drawn in my mind, and saw all my years as the Nakba. People from all over Gaza and the north were fleeing on their feet to the south. My sister called me that day and told me that Israel warned everyone in Gaza and the north of Gaza to leave to the south. It will be safe there, they said. My family, who lived in Gaza City, north of the Gaza Strip, did not want to leave their home. But the news of the Israeli land invasion, and because of the many experiences of war we had lived before, they knew that they should protect their children and leave. That would only be for a few days or weeks, and then they would return home, they thought. Right now, my family is separated. Some of them are in the middle of Gaza. Some are in Rafah, not knowing where to go or where is the safest place for them to seek refuge in. Others had to leave Gaza to Egypt, hoping for a better life for them and their children. In this war, I lost my aunt, her husband, her children, and grandchildren. I lost my nephew, Yahya, who was born in the war of 2009, lived his entire 15 years suffering of kidney dialysis that was caused by the white phosphorus, which his mother inhaled during the 2009 attack on Gaza. And he died in this war when he was not able to receive the treatment he needed. Whereas my ancestors took the key to return with them when they were forced to leave their homeland in 1948, believing that in 2 weeks they will return, I did not. I left the key to my house in Gaza because I always knew that I would come back. I gave it to my sister before I leave, but the few things that I brought with me from my city, from my house, those I keep next to my heart every day. The map of Palestine and the last gift that my mother gave to me before she died. Those are always my reminder that there is a city, a state, a house that I will return to one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ina. So now we're just gonna open it up to questions.
How was your time adjusting to America?
Ever since I came here, I was actually after doing the Palestine rights thing, I wanted to stay for some time to see America. It was my first time ever to leave Gaza. I have never seen anything, any other place but Gaza. I could never even go to the West Bank or see other cities except for Gaza because I was not allowed to do this. Not only me, but all the people in Gaza because we have always been under the siege. So for the first time to me, to come out of Gaza, to leave Gaza, and to come here, it was an opportunity for me to see the US. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to see the dream, the country or the state of dreams that is the US. But when everything started in Gaza, I actually couldn't live or see or know what it is like to be to live in the US. So it has always been about seeing or following what is happening in Gaza and following what's happening with my family because they are always there. I'm always trying to check up on them. I'm always, specifically when when they don't have an internet connection, I don't know how to reach them. So it has been not the experience that I hope to live.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, you kind of answered it sort of, but about, if you are having trouble communicating, I would assume, there'd be a lot of power, whatever else is going on, like, has that been really tough communicating with them?
I was trying to, yes, at first it was really, really difficult. So every day when I wake up in the morning, I just look at we have the family group chat. So I just ask every day whenever I wake up, I just ask, are you okay? This is what I ask for. I'm not asking if they are physically okay or mentally okay, or they are mentally okay, or if they are like the usual question of are you okay? I'm asking if they are alive. This is what I'm asking about. So I was looking for any one of them until one of them just say, yeah, we are good, and that's when I get relieved. But before that, I get just on my phone all the time, just checking on them. Recently, it has become better because now they have internet, alhamdulillah, and now I can get to know more about them. But once you get to reach one of them, you kind of get to find the others, like to get to know if the others are good or not, because they can reach each other and also. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, you explained about your nephew that he passed away after not being able to get dialysis, and he was born with kidney. Was it like the kidney failure because his mother was exposed to the white phosphorus, your sister?
Yeah.
Can you explain that more? Like it was what 2008, and like what that was? Is it in one of the intifadas, or like, and they were using the white phosphorus back then? Because that's kind of like something I don't know about.
So the Intifada is something else. Intifada was in 2002, and that was basically it started in the West Bank and we continued in Gaza. But in 2008 and 2009, it was the first attack on Gaza. And then that attack, it was for me also the first ever war that I get to live, to know what is like a land invasion, to hear the sound of the bombs, of the explosions, of the tanks moving and throwing their bombs near my house, or to hear the land that is under me just moving, just because you would think it's an earthquake, but it's actually not. It's just a tank moving near your house. So at that time, we had to leave also because the tanks were coming near our house, and we were afraid. The whole neighborhood left, and it was only us until this. So my father finally decided that we have to leave. So we left. My sister was with us. She was pregnant in her ninth month, in the 9th month. And when we reached there, we stayed there for 2 weeks. The whole war in 2008, 2009 started it was 20 days, 21 days. And at that time, my sister had to deliver her baby, which was Yahya. Yahya is John in English, and it means the person who is to live, Yahya. So he was born at that time in the middle of a truce. So it was a truce of 2 hours. My mom and my sister, they had to run under this truce to the hospital. They have to deliver the baby in this 2 hours. They had no time. So they come back and they had Yahya. He was nice. He was good. And then after that, before going to this, like while we were running to go there, in the last days we had white phosphorus, which were thrown on us. In fact, the white phosphorus was the reason for why my house was burned later. So the white phosphorus was thrown on us. So when we ran on our car to escape, there was white phosphorus in the atmosphere. You can smell it. And then my sister, she delivered her baby. In the very first days, he was okay, but he was crying all the time, more than any other child. And then later we realized, like after when everything has ended and there's no war anymore, when they check him up, they find that he has escape of albumin, something like this, and then later this developed into kidney dialysis. 2 years later, it developed into kidney dialysis. And then my nephew had to live through the kidney dialysis for his 15 years. He had to go to the hospital 4 days a week for 4 hours a day. During this attack that happened in Gaza, my nephew could not go to the hospital. The ambulance could not come to take him because they have other more dangerous cases to take, and like the roads are so difficult to walk in. So my sister and her husband had to take Yahya on their own the bombings from the helicopters from all of under the bombings of the tanks. They had to go to the hospital by themselves. Because if they don't if they don't do this, Yahya his body is going to be poisoned and he's going to die. So with time, instead of 4 days a week, it turned into 3, and then into 2, and then at the end it became 2 days, but it is like 1.5 hours instead of 4 hours a day. At the end, Yahya's body was poisoned, and he could not take it anymore, so he died in this attack in this war.
How do you find positivity, and where does your courage come from? Like, mashallah, like, you're so courageous, you get up every day. It looks to me that, you find anything to keep you positive and to keep you doing what you do, I can't even imagine. So where do you?
I don't know. It's just because you are raised in this situation. This is how I raised. I have always been living in wars. This is what I know about life. This for me, like it's either like we either know we even know, like we say, like we joke about it. Even we say I have a bachelor's degree of wars because I witnessed 4 wars, or I would say like I have masters because I witnessed 6 wars. We joke about it, and everyone jokes about it. We know this. So we have to be strong, because if you don't get strong, you have no one to take care of you. So you have to overcome whatever is happening to you. So you have to take care of yourself.
And another thing I want to say is that I know, watching a lot of what's going on overseas, a lot of us, including some of my family members, have been suffering from like anxiety attacks, depression, and over here in America, as you know, we have access to medications and doctors and urgent cares, and we can have something to help us. But like, how do you over there in Gaza, someone like you, having all this go on around you, and being that you grew up in it, how do you tame that anxiety, the fear, the insomnia? How, like, especially now, like with what's going on, you don't have access.
I think it's more of that you escape. Like you have to find some way. We in Gaza, specifically in Gaza, going to a therapist or a psychologist, someone who can help you, is a stigma. So you can't go there. You can't do it. So you have to find your own way to escape, whether that is by finding a hobby, by writing, which was the therapy that we are not numbers did to me and many of the young guys in Gaza. Writing was actually the therapy for all of us, for most of us, not all of us. But you have to find that. Other than that, you are going to get depressed and commit suicide, because lots of people in Gaza recently have been committing suicide. They have been killing themselves. There is no life in Gaza. There is no jobs. There is no future. It's a siege. It's not a siege. It's a prison. They don't know there is no glimpse of hope. They don't know what is expected of them. Why are they alive? Are they alive to just to be under the wars year on year? Or and like we know that every 2 years, at the beginning it was every 2 years there's a war, and then it became every 1 year. In this, or last year, in 2023, it was actually two wars in 1 year. So it was in May of 2023, and it was also in October 2023. So things have been very, very difficult on the people, and it's one of two ways. You either support yourself and have the support of your family or the people who love you to overcome it, or you just collapse, and then that happens of them killing themselves, taking their own lives. Even though we are a very conservative society, we are very related to Islam and these ideas of religion, we should not do this. But when they reach that stage of living, of not knowing what to do, they just give up. That's it. And also, I was just like, because she was telling here about the masters of translation. In fact, in July, I was working on my thesis for the translation. I was actually going to have it. I applied for my proposal, and my proposal was accepted. And then I came here to the U.S. to do the presentation at Palestine Rights. But now my university is destroyed. The Islamic University. Even my professor, my supervisor, I'm sure many of you have heard about him, Dr. Rifat Al-Arayer. He was also killed. I felt like that master's when you mentioned it, it's just like reminded me that I could not finish it. So this is why I just wanted to say this. Like I could not even continue the dream that I wanted to have a master's in translation, which I worked really hard for, really, really hard, because in Gaza it's not easy. Nothing is easy. So to do this, it's really hard. So that's it.
In this country, in our society here, we have a lot of controversy on the Second Amendment, private ownership of guns. What was the Palestinian attitudes on the population being armed at home, like we have in this country?
So I can explain it more. I'm not sure I understood the question.
So can I, he's basically saying that, well, I'll explain it a little bit. So in the West Bank, for example, they're actually stripped of all arms. Even in Gaza, they're not allowed to have arms. Any arms that you see is underground arms. So it's not anything that is actually there. While the Israeli settlers on the other hand, are armed by the government.
Yeah.
So he's saying either people holding the guns and weapons, what are people's thoughts? But it's not people don't typically. Does that make sense?
Well, before the Nakba and that, what was their general attitude towards private ownership of weapons and self-defense and stuff?
The general attitude is that people want to live. In the last 3 or 4 years, I wish that we could have had the chance to come to Gaza, because Gaza was just starting to get boring. We have lots of beautiful places. We have lots of people started to find hope, because all of a sudden we started to see people like you coming to Gaza. There was a glimpse of hope, a glimpse of the border was starting to open. So we started for the first time ever communicate with people who are not Gaza people who do not speak Arabic, people who speak other languages. So for us, it was like we started to feel that there is life, there is different type of life, there is different type of things that we can aim for. There are scholarships that students applied for and wanted to go to. So Gaza in the last 3 years, specifically in the last 3 years, it was totally different than any other time. It was so open, it was so nice, it was so beautiful, and you can see the pictures. I wish I brought them first. yeah, we have like lots of pictures of Gaza in the last few years, and this is why when I look and when every Palestinian from Gaza open the social media or reading the news or seeing the photos on the news, when we see what happened to Gaza, when we see the Rashid Street, which we used to just enjoy our time, just to stay there, like most of our summer is all of the Gazans are sitting in Rashid Street that overlooks the beach. So Gaza is totally different for us. It's more of a home. It's more of the only thing that we know in life. So it's now deprived. It's now taken from us. So we were not thinking about any wars. We only were hoping for peace, and this is what everyone was planning, was aiming, was actually focusing on. I know that answers the question.
Kind of.
I have a question. Can you tell us a little bit about We Are Not Members, about the organization?
Yeah. So the We Are Not Members is a project that basically started in after 2014 at Gaza. The word that started in 2014. It actually started with Ahmed al-Naouk. Ahmed al-Naouk, his brother, was killed in 2014. And at that time, like he was so sad about him. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to make himself feel better. So at that time, there was an American journalist who was living here, and she told him, "Okay, so how about you write about what happened?" So when he started writing, and she edited his writing, it helped him because he was able to express his feelings, to tell what happened with him. And then the idea came, like, why don't we do this? Because when Ahmed started talking about his brother, he did not talk about any, like, that he died and that I'm so sad about his death. He was talking about his brother, the features of his brother, how good his brother was, what was his dreams, what were his thoughts about these things or that or the others. So from that, the idea of We Are Not Members started, and we started to bring lots of young writers who have the ability to speak and to write in English, and then they got training to how to write, and they get connected to mentors from the U.S. So we have the Palestinian writers who are from Gaza who have never been connected to any person who is out of Gaza, and now we have people or our mentors from the U.S. or from Britain, people who are native English speakers, but also they are people with experience in writing. So they are authors, they are journalists, they are experienced in their own field, specialists in their field. And we connect one-to-one. We connect each writer to a mentor, and together they come up with 2 or 3 stories or whatever, no matter the number of the stories that they hope for. So from that, we have all the We Are Not Members program now. And currently, actually, the We Are Not Members is doing great work because the graduates of We Are Not Members are the writers. And the writers are telling now the stories of what's happening in Gaza. They are the ones who are the soldiers, the journalists who are telling the stories of what's happening in Gaza. You can see it all over the news.
I'm very grateful that you're here today to be able to talk to us about this. And if I was in your place and in your shoes, if I had left a month before what happened, I would question how or why, or almost like a survivor's guilt. And I guess I'm asking how, or if you question that yourself and question the luck almost, and how you cope with that.
Yes, in fact, I did question myself a lot, question like everything. I was thinking, where in the world did I decide to stay? Why didn't I go back? I should have went back right after the conference ended. I was thinking that my family is there and they might die anytime, and that I want to die with them. Like I don't want to hear the news that they died or that something happened to them and I'm not with them. It's so hard to be in this place, especially that it happens for me for the first time. Like I've always lived these situations with them. I know how it happens. I know how we manage, how we do like the food just to forget, how we just sit all together in one place so that if anything happens, we all die together. So that this is the main idea. I know that we would find or make up some games, whether that is ideas, whether that is cards, something that we have to do when there is no light and there is no electricity, because always there has never been electricity when there is war, and even when there was no war, it's always there's no electricity. So I know how they manage. How for them it would be easier maybe for me because I'm a father. For me, I was just thinking that maybe this explosion that just happened, maybe it was next to them, near them, because um, I know that anything could happen during that time. And Abdul Qadir again, okay. Abdul Qadir, okay, so in the first few days when the attack happened, I was in outside, and then like an airplane came, like a normal airplane, just passengers airplane. But for me, it wasn't passengers. For me, I was looking upside, and then I was expecting that this is like the airplane. Then I have to make sure that something is happening. I need to run away, to run very fast, because the windows are closed, so I need to open them, because if there's an explosion, I need to make sure that the windows are not exploding, and because this is how I'm used to do. We have to open all the windows when there is an explosion. We have to open most of all the doors, even if it is cold, because if we don't do this, it is either we get cold or we get killed. So this is what we do. Even when I was, for instance, praying, for instance, it would come to me like, oh, I have to keep the clothes on me, because I might leave anytime, and we might have to run away anytime, because this is how I'm used to deal with these situations. But then I realized, like at the very end of it, that no, it's nothing. It's only them. But then when you realize that it's only them are your family. Them are your sisters, your brothers, your nephews, the children that you have been raising, that you have been playing with, that you have been telling stories. And then you think, like, why are they there? Why am I here in peace? No, just knowing and reading and just watching what's happening to them. So it was not easy at all in the very first the very few days, and even not even until now. Like you just feel that you can't control it, but you don't know what to do with it. So all of a sudden you would go and cry. You don't know why you are crying. I have been crying a lot after father saying, but it is what it is. So you have to deal with it again.
On a positive note, being a student and knowing how much effort you've put into getting your master's and thing, how do you feel with everything that's going up and knowing that all of these universities, right, knowing also that your university was destroyed? I hope, and not this isn't necessarily a question, but I hope it's at least a glimmer of hope to know that, or give you some sort of like shed a positive light, knowing that you aren't alone in the struggle, and that more and more people are rising, and that more and more people who aren't personally affected but understand and know who you are and don't see you as a number. So I hope that one comes along or comes across. But how do you feel seeing all of these universities and all these brave students who are standing up for you, your family, and everyone else back home?
I'm actually hesitant to answer this question. It's something to be proud of. It's something so emotional to know that finally they know what's actually happening. For my entire life, I have been questioning like, what is it that makes the story that is so clear to us because we're Palestinians. We know the story, we know the narrative, we know what happened. Why is it that the world does not understand that? And then later I realized that the narrative itself is not told correctly, and then the media is affecting everything, and that was actually shocked me the first time when I came here when the attack started, and when I saw the media talking about it as if like the other way around, like it was surprising for me. But now seeing that the whole world is changing, that the whole point of view is changing, and that people are now seeing the truth, the reality. It makes you feel proud. It makes you feel a little bit relieved, but at the same time you have this pain inside you. Like that did it have you? I mean, does it have to for all of these victims to be killed, for all of these Palestinians, for all of these catastrophes, for a whole city, for a whole history to be destroyed and eliminated, so that the world can understand and see what is the truth. So sometimes you feel this, and at the same time you feel, but at least it happened. Alhamdulillah, it finally something is happening. The worldview is happening, is changing, so that is a relief somehow.
I had one more question. First, it was a good speech. The second thing is there, do you notice any differences like between Gaza and like America? Is that like, I don't know.
Okay, next question.
I'll say it. Yeah, just, I mean, it's hard to speak for everyone, but generally, you know, what is the kind of, or I guess just even before, you know, October 7th, so like just during the general occupation, what were kind of the Ghazi's thoughts on like America's role in, you know, in how much we fund, or maybe it's a general thing that they don't know much about, or like, you know, or just that how much we fund them and that we're such an ally of Israel. Like, kind of what is the impression of, you know, or do they blame America? You know, kind of just what's the general thought process of Americans that, you know, our role in all of this and all of 75 years.
So as you said, like the writers work on Gaza. I'm just going to talk first about the writers because they get to know about the other world through the Americans. So they love the American people. The mentors who were with the writers, they were so supportive. They were so like for many of them, they were telling the writers were telling stories, and they were just saying like it is like it is a normal thing. Like yesterday, my we didn't have electricity, and then they continue with the story because this is how we are used to. But then the Americans would be like, oh, but tell us more details about this. What happened in there? What do you mean in this? What do you mean in that? And because of them, we realized that some of the things that we considered are just general things that are like everyone knows about are actually not. Electricity should not be cut 8 hours out a day. It's not like it's not a schedule that we should live with. We are used like in the morning. Today we have electricity in the morning. So from 8 in the morning until 2 p.m. we have electricity. So in these 8 hours we have to do laundry, we have to do the food, we have to do everything in these 8 hours. And then the next 8 hours, which are from 2 until 10, we have to find other choices, other alternatives in our lives. So, and then comes the electricity during the night, and then the next day it is the opposite. The next day you don't have electricity in the morning, but you have it in the afternoon. So, and we have like a schedule. We know when to call the electricity company, and sometimes we make the job. Like for instance, we would say like the electricity the power should be off by 2, and then the power stays until 3, and then we call the electricity company, what is wrong? Is there something wrong? There is 1 hour more. So we know we have been living through this, like this type of life for so many years. And when explaining these things to American people, it was enjoyable for the writers to know that, like, there are people who are asking, there are people who are caring about us, or they want to know. So for the people themselves, the Americans themselves, it is really nice. And I think the people of us, they love them. But it could be that some of the actions that happened that made us feel like so angry could be the announcement of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel in 2017. That was a horrible, horrible thing. And that was one day that I remember, like everyone remembers. And so it is like between this and that. We love the people, but at the same time, we know that there are some policies that are done which are always against us. Especially like in the latest veto that is raised during the many like attacks on Gaza, and especially this attack, especially in the specific.
I hope this is appropriate. I want to make a personal comment. I visited Palestine in 2017 with an organization called Eyewitness Palestine. To my surprise, the Palestinian people that we met, maybe I shouldn't say to my surprise, but what I observed, the Palestinian people that we met, after years, decades of subjugation, they were not angry and revengeful. They were simply proud of who they were. They knew who they were. They know who they were. We visited a house that was about to be taken over by one of those settlements. Chickens, dogs, people. It seemed like there was a sense of hopelessness, but we have to go on. I asked people when I came back, what do you think a refugee camp looks like? They said tents and temporary structures. And I said, no, a 60-year-old city is a refugee camp. I was amazed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's also like when people like you who go to Palestine and see the people, it is that makes the Palestinian story, the Palestinians people be known and like their stories to be told. Because in the media we only hear what is told to us. We don't know the truth until we see them, until we talk to them. And even when you think, even the stereotype that everyone may know about Gaza, about Palestine, is that when you think about Palestine, about Gaza, it's always war, it's always killing, it's always tents, it's always donkeys, it's always bad things. And when you go there, you actually see the opposite. We have people who are working with Google, people who are working online all the time because of the unemployment, the high rate of unemployment in Gaza and in the West Bank. We do our alternatives. So we move to the internet and we do the freelance and we make our own options and our own solutions. So Palestine and Palestinians should be treated personally so that you can know them, you can tell their stories instead of just hearing and listening to the news and listening about the people who you never met.
Thank you all for coming and for listening and staying. I know it's late, so quick announcement. Sunday, it is Palestine Day on Palestine Way. If you not know, you should all know this by now, but you should all come. So we're gonna have it on Palestine Way. The whole street is gonna be closed. We have parking options. We have carpool. We are encouraging carpool. You can check our website or Instagram and our Facebook page for all the details. We're going to have a lot of Palestinian vendors and businesses. We'll be having education. We'll be having a advocacy, so a whole team working on civic engagement advocacy, and a great lineup of speakers and artists and speeches. We, just like Ina said, so today is the anniversary of the Nakba. We continue to fight for the freedom and the dignity of all Palestinians, and that is what Sunday is for. So please join us on Palestine Way for Palestine Day, for Day of Representation and Resilience.